Welcome back to another class on the voice of Torah. We are in Parshat Bereshit in Perek Aleph, pasuk Aleph, in the middle of Rashi in Ot Aleph. We began speaking about the verse Bereshit bara Elokim et Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz. Came Rashi, and Rashi wanted to teach us that do not learn this verse, that it is telling you the chronological order of creation. Whenever you read the first verse in the Torah, which states Bereshit in the beginning, bara Elokim et Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz, Hashem created the heavens and the earth, do not understand it to mean the first thing that He created were the heavens and the earth. In order to avoid this understanding, Rashi said, let's see Lifi Midrasho, according to its interpretation. How can we explain it in order to avoid that problem? So what did we do? In the previous class we explained that the word Bereshit has to be broken up into two separate words. The bet we're going to use for Bishvil. Reshit we're going to use for Torah and the Jewish people. So we're going to interpret it like this. Bishvil Torah, Bishvil Israel, which means for Torah, for the Jewish people, Shedikra'et Reshit, which are called Reshit, they are called first. Bara Elokim et Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz. Hashem created the heavens and the earth. If you're going to interpret the Torah this way, now you don't have any questions. Maybe it was coming to teach me the chronological order of creation. Nevertheless, comes Rashi. Today Rashi is going to tell me, even if you want to go ahead and learn according to its simple understanding, because you need to understand, in reality, the word Bereshit means in the beginning. So why are we coming now and breaking up the word? Tell me the understanding of the word Bereshit, the way it is written in the Torah, without telling me any derashot. So what is Rashi going to do? Rashi is going to start teaching us today grammar in order to be able to understand that this word Bereshit, or better yet, that this whole verse in the Torah is not teaching me the chronological order. We first have to understand the Lashon HaKodesh grammar. How does it work? So we're going to see Be'ezrat Hashem B'Lineder, Rashi is going to point out that whenever you have the word Bereshit, it must follow immediately by the word next to it. What do I mean? If I'm going to read it, I could read this verse in two ways. One way I could read it, Bereshit, comma, bara Elokim et Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz. Bereshit, in the beginning, comma, bara Elokim, God created, et Hashemayim, the heavens, ve'et ha'aretz, and the earth. If you're going to read it like that, then you are right that in the beginning, what did God create first? The heavens and the earth. But comes Rashi, and Rashi tells you, you can't learn it in that way. Why? Because whenever you have the word Bereshit, it always has to go ahead with the next word next to it. That means to say the word bara, which we were understanding to mean created, you're going to have to go back and learn it creating. So we're going to learn it like this. Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning of Hashem creating. Not that anything was created. He's saying in the beginning of Hashem creating. Et Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz. The heavens and the earth. You guys paid attention what I just did? There's two ways I can learn this verse. Bereshit, in the beginning. Bara Elokim, God created. Et Hashemayim ve'et ha'aretz, the heavens and the earth. If I'm going to read it like that, then I'm understanding that in the beginning, what did Hashem create first? Was the heaven and then the earth. But Rashi says grammatically that is incorrect. Why? Because the word Bereshit always has to follow with the next word next to it. So instead of saying Bereshit, comma, say Bereshit bara Elokim, comma. So automatically this word bara is not coming to teach us that it means created, but rather creating. So if you're going to read it like that, you're going to say Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning of Hashem's creation, or in the beginning of Hashem creating et Hashema ve'et haaretz, and so on and so forth. We're going to see this now, Be'ezrat Hashem. So let me go over with you the grammar, because this is very important to know. Once we know the grammar, we'll be able to understand the Rashi a little bit simpler. I actually put everything on the board in order for us to be able to understand this Rashi. And I'll tell you the truth, I was speaking to many Talmidei Chachamim about this Rashi, and because this Rashi seems very simple, but it's not. And I asked many rabbis, and how can you understand this Rashi? I even used different books to try to go ahead and learn this Rashi. It didn't make sense until I picked up that you have to be very careful the way you are learning the word bara. And that's what Rashi is going to go on to explain to us. So let's learn the grammar first. We have a verb, and you also have a verbal noun. If I'm going to learn this verse as a verb, so I'm going to look at the word bara to mean created. So then you're going to have 3 steps basically over here. You're going to learn step number 1, you're going to say Bereshit, comma. Step number 2, you're going to say bara Elokim, God created, because bara in the verb means created. Step number 3, et Hashema ve'et haaretz. So if bara is a verb, then the verse is telling you what Hashem did and when. So you're right, then it's coming to teach me the chronological order of creation. But comes Rashi today, Rashi is going to teach us, no, don't learn this verse to mean that it's a verb, but rather we're going to go with the verbal noun. Meaning to say, when it says Bereshit bara Elokim, don't learn it like that. Learn it Bereshit bero. Why? How does that change? Because when you say bero, it means creating. So now you're going to have only 2 steps. Step number 1, you're going to read it like this. Bereshit bero Elokim. In the beginning of Hashem creating. Step number 2, et Hashema ve'et haaretz, the heavens and the earth. So if we use the word vero is a verbal noun, then the verse is introducing a broader idea and is dependent on what follows. For example, when Hashem began creating, etc. Another way you could look at this verse is, instead of saying in the beginning, you could just say when Hashem began creating the heavens and the earth, X, Y, and Z. Now, I didn't have the space to write everything on the board. You'll see why, because I have also other things written on the other side. But let me try to tell you outside. Let's try to go with the verbal noun. Let's try to understand that if this word bara means bara creating, so it's a verbal noun, then the verse is introducing a broader idea and is dependent on what follows. What follows, Rabotai? If we look into the pasuk, it says like this. Bereshit, I'm going to read it to you the way Rashi wants us to see it. Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning of Hashem creating et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, the heavens and the earth, ve'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu, and the land. This ve is not really end, since we are introducing a broader idea which is dependent on the next verse. So really you're going to have to go ahead and take the word ve'haaretz, and you have to learn when the land, not end the land. Ve'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu, when the land was desolate, ve'choshech al panei tehom, and there was darkness on the depth, ve'ruach Elokim merechevet al panei hamayim, and the Spirit of God was hovering on the surface of the water. Vayomer Elokim ye'or vayihi or. Then Hashem said, let there be light, and there was light. So what just happened? When you begin with the verse of Bereshit bara Elokim et Hashema ve'et haaretz, in the beginning of Hashem creating the heaven and the earth, when the earth was desolate and dark, etc., do you know what Hashem did in the beginning of the world? Vayihi Vayomer Elokim Yeor. Hashem said, let there be light. Vayeor. And there was light. So we see really what was the first thing that was created on day one? It was light. So that's why you can't come and tell me that this verse is teaching me a chronological order, because that's not the case. Because you can't learn it, as we're going to see also. One more time, Rabotai. The word Bereshit always has to be accompanied by the next word next to it. You could never separate the word Bereshit from the word next to it. It always has to be together. If that is the case, it's not coming to teach me the chronological order. So one more time, Rabotai, just to make sure that we have it clear, and then you'll see how simple Rashi is going to be. So if bara, we're going to treat it as boro, meaning creating, is a verbal noun, then the verse is introducing. So this verse over here is not telling us a fact, but rather it's introducing a broader idea and is dependent on what follows. For example, when Hashem began creating the heavens and the earth, when the earth was still desolate, etc., Hashem said, let there be light. So what did he do in the beginning of the creation of the world? Hashem said, let there be light. So we see on day one, what was the first thing that was created? Light. Okay, Rabotai, this is one way of understanding it. Now we want to move on to the next section. Rashi is going to go ahead and he's going to try to prove to us that the word Bereshit always has to be accompanied with another verse. Whatever verse is next to it, they have to go hand in hand. So I wrote over here, note, always connecting the word Bereshit with the word that comes after it. You could never separate. That's why, Rabotai, grammatically, if I wanted to read this correctly, when it says in the Torah, Bereshit bara Elokim, and if I wanted to separate the word Bereshit from bara Elokim, it is very hard for me to do so. Because grammatically speaking, the word Bereshit has to be next to the word bara. So if that is the case, the word bara is not teaching me what was created, but rather it's telling me the creation. So let's see over here. He's going to give us a few examples in Rashi. It's going to say, Bereshit Mamlechet Yehoyakim. In the beginning of Yehoyakim's reign. Now I could have read it like this. Let me just get a marker. Would this make sense? Bereshit, comma. Mamlechet Yehoyakim, the reign of Yehoyakim. One second, I don't know what just happened. Bereshit, in the beginning, comma. Begin the statement. Mamlechet Yehoyakim. Yehoyakim reign. What happened? So therefore, what do we have to do? We have to take away this comma, and we have to always connect the word Bereshit with the word that follows next to it. So you're going to read it, Bereshit Mamlechet Yehoyakim. In the beginning of Yehoyakim's reign, which makes sense. Same thing over here. Reshit Mamlachto. The beginning of his kingship, or the beginning of his rule. If I'm going to tell you Reshit, beginning, comma, Mamlachto, his reign. What reign? But if I tell you they're one and together, Reshit Mamlachto, the beginning of his rulership. Same thing over here, Reshit Deganecha. Put them together. The beginning of your harvest. Not the beginning, comma. Harvest. It doesn't make sense. I'm going to give you an example. A person says, in the beginning, I went to the bank. What? In the beginning, I went to the bank. What do you mean? In the beginning, grammatically, in the grammar sense, it doesn't make sense. You have to say, in the beginning of the day, I went to the bank. You have to make sense of the statement, of the sentence. So that's exactly what we're doing over here. We're trying to make it grammatically correct by taking the word Bereshit, Reshit, and combining to the word that is next to it. So whenever you say Bereshit Mamlechet Yehoyakim, In the beginning of Yehoiakim's reign, makes sense. Reshit Mamalachto, the beginning of his rulership, Reshit Deganecha, the first of your crop. All these make sense. So now we can understand also the verse in the Torah where it says, Bereshit bara Elokim. Connect the word bara, but don't read it bara. Read it vero. Creating. In the beginning of Hashem creating the heavens and earth, when the earth was dark and desolate, Hashem created light. In the beginning of the creation, Hashem created light. So we see over here that the verse in the Torah is not teaching us the chronological order, because that cannot be the case grammatically, as I'm explaining now. The next piece of Rashi is going to try to prove to us, whenever you have a word of Bereshit in the beginning, or the word Tichilat, which means the beginning or at first, it can change the word next to it from a verb to a verbal noun. Like we saw right over here. When I say over here Bereshit, it's automatically going to change this word from a verb to a verbal noun, to boro. It's going to change it from created to creating. And Rashi is going to prove us this case in another situation. He says like this. When we say in the Torah, Bereshit bara, it changes to Bereshit bero. In the beginning, comma, Hashem created, versus in the beginning of Hashem's creating. Now, where do we have something similar to this? It speaks about, let me just see right over here, Hosea. It says that Tichilat Diber Hashem, let me see the whole verse. Tichilat Diber Hashem beHosea. It says that in the beginning, comma, Hashem spoke to Hosea. What? In the beginning, Hashem, we know in the beginning, who's the first one to ever speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's why you can't tell me over here that this over here, Techilat and Diber, they're one and the same. You can't. What you have to do is you have to go ahead and you have to change this word to Dibiro. Techilat Dibiro, we're going to see, Rashi is going to point out, the beginning of Hashem speaking to Hosea, not the beginning of when Hashem spoke to. No, that you can't say. One more time, Rabotai. When I say here, Tichilat Diber Hashem, let me get the whole verse. Let me make it, Rabotai. When it says over here, Tichilat Diber Hashem be Hosea, if you're going to say Tichilat in the beginning or at the beginning, comma, Diber Hashem be Hosea. Hashem spoke with Hosea. Well, in the beginning Hashem didn't speak to Hosea because we know Hashem first spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore he's going to tell us, so you have to say, change this word from Diber to Diburo. But what are we seeing over here? That you are able to go ahead and change the word in the Torah next to the word beginning, like over here. Whenever you have a word of Bereshit or a word of Tichilat, it can change the word next to it from a verb to a verbal noun. And that's exactly what we're doing over here. Instead of saying Tichilat Diber Hashem be Hosea, in the beginning Hashem spoke to, no, in the beginning Hashem didn't speak to Hosea. In the beginning, if Hashem spoke, He spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. So therefore we're going to learn over here, since it says Tichilat, change the word Diber to Diburo. In the beginning of Hashem speaking with Hosea, meaning whenever He started speaking with Hosea, that's how we're going to have to learn this verse. Okay, Rabotai, I hope you guys are getting it. Let's try to see this Rashi over here. It will be more clear if you still didn't get it like this, but I try to break it down as much as I can in order for us to be able to see this Rashi. Okay, so Rashi says like this. Ve'im bata liparasho ki pashuto. If you want to come and explain the verse of Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz according to its simple understanding. Let's just show it as we go along. If you want to come and you want to explain the verse, according to its simple understanding, because the implication of the word Bereshit bara is teaching us under the beginning of the creation, and then don't go ahead and break up this word into two. Give me the regular understanding. Kach Parshehu explained this verse like this: Bereshit, in the beginning, Briat Shamayim va'aretz. Learn this word that he's telling you, put it as Briat. Basically like Boro, same thing. Kach Parshehu, explain it like this: Bereshit Briat Elokim et Hashem et haaretz. In the beginning of Hashem creating the heavens and the earth. And when the land was desolate and it was dark, then Hashem said, let there be light, and there was light. When did Hashem say, let there be light? In the beginning of Hashem wanting to create the heaven and the earth. So what came first? Light. That is the first thing that was created on day one. Rabotai, I just want to make something clear as we move forward. You have to understand that this is what's written in the Torah. But you should know that there were other things that were created prior to what was written in the Torah. Even though here it says, Bereshit bara Elokim Hashem haaretz, etc., Vayihi or, and there was light. So we understand that on day one Hashem created light, but prior to that there were also other things that were created. As we're going to see, water, which is not mentioned in the 7 days of creation, was created prior to day one. Fire, which is not mentioned in creation, was created prior to day one. There were things that were created prior to day one. So that's why people can say, oh, if it doesn't say in the Torah that Hashem created this, this, and this, that means Hashem didn't create it. No, we're making a very big mistake, because prior to even creating the world, Hashem already created other things. It's over here just we're trying to make an order. We're trying to go ahead and we want to assemble what was on day one, what was on day two. But over here we're learning, but don't learn from this verse that is teaching you that the first thing was created was the heaven on day one. Then was the land on day one. Then was the light. That's not necessarily true. The way we're learning now, it could have been just the opposite, which actually it is the opposite. First was on day one what was created, what's written in Torah, not prior to the light, but what's written in the Torah. First on day one, light was created. And only afterwards, Rabotai, the Torah goes on to start breaking everything up. Shamayim va'aretz, day and night, and that's what we're going to see. And this is what we have to learn and try to go ahead and understand Rashi, try to understand the Chumash through the eyes of Rashi. I was explaining this pshat to a few Talmidei Chachamim, and you know, everybody likes to hear beautiful chidushim. I speak for myself. I told this person for myself, not speaking chas v'shalom on anyone. And I told him, I said, you know, you have all these chidushim that we learn, and B'lei Har Baruch Hashem, if I show you all this, almost the Chumash section. Actually, this is also the Chumash section. All of them have over here a lot of sections, chidushim on the Torah. And I told him, it's nuts how I'm learning chidushim on the Torah when I don't know simple understanding in the Chumash. I love to learn Gemara with Rashi. I love to learn Shulchan Aruch with the Nosei Kelim, with the Rishonim, Achronim, fine. But Chumash, Rabotai, when did you ever sit down to try to understand what Rashi has to say on the Chumash? So as I started doing this and I started learning by myself, it amazes me, why didn't I do this earlier? Because it's very beautiful when you understand what Rashi has to teach you on the verse. So next time when you're going to be learning this verse, Bereshit bara Elokim Hashem haaretz, you're going to know Lefi Midrash according to the interpretation, Lefi Peshat according to the simple understanding. And now if you want to bring Chidushim, Now you could go ahead and start understanding if it makes sense or not. You'll appreciate the learning better. And anyway, so I was telling this Talmud Chacham, not one time, but a few Talmud Chachamim, it's not how we like to listen to this rabbi and this rabbi, which is nothing wrong. It's beautiful to hear Chidushim. But why don't we first do what's required of us? Why are we doing other things what's not required? And then we wonder why we don't know the simple pshat in the Chumash. You know, when it comes to Gemara learning, Baruch Hashem, if you don't do Rashi, I don't know how you could ever learn Gemara without Rashi. That's impossible. But, you know, people try to tell me pshat like this in the Gemara, try to tell me pshat like this in the Gemara. I ask them, what does Rashi say? I don't know. So how can you tell me pshat in the Gemara? If you don't know what Rashi is saying, how can you tell me what's the pshat in the Gemara? I always want to see what Rashi has to say. First, let me see what Rashi has to say, then tell me what you have to say. So you see if it goes hand in hand. And then you could even understand better Tosfot and other Rishonim, Rabotai. And then if there's a Chidushim, you could even understand that better. But first, you have to do Rashi. So I told it to the Talmid Chacham, he's like, wow, it's, he said, you're right, we we're already what? A lot of us are at least past 40, B'lian Har Baruch Hashem. May we live at the minimum to 120. But how many of us ever finished Chumash with Rashi? And I'm talking about learning it in depth and trying to understand what Rashi was saying on the verse. People do it on Gemara, but on Chumash, not only that, now I'm thinking about, you have Tanakh, right? You have Yirmiyah, you have Dirayam, Yechezkel, Yeshaya. There's so much Torah out there that we have to learn. And are we doing it, Rabotai? Anyway, Baruch Hashem, we started somewhere. Let's see how this goes. In any event, we come to prove today from the verse of Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz that it's not coming to teach you the chronological order, but rather it's coming to tell you that when Hashem began creating the heavens and the earth, and when the earth was chaos and there was darkness, in that the beginning of creating of the heavens and the earth, what did Hashem create first? Light. And by the way, we'll see later on in Rashi is going to say that this light is very different than the light that was created later on. I think on day 4 probably. Because we'll see, because this light that was created initially was put away for the tzaddikim. But in any event, let's just stick to what we have over here. So I want to go through the pshat one more time over here in Rashi, and then we'll continue explaining the second side of the board. Okay. If you want to come and explain this verse according to simple understanding, that the implication of the word Bereshit bara, more al tichilat abriya, comes to teach you on the beginning of creation. Kach parshehu, explain it like this, like the verbal noun, not like the verb, but like the verbal noun. Bereshit briat Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. In the beginning of God creating the heaven and the earth. V'ha'aretz hayta tohu v'vohu, when the land was void or chaos and it was dark. Az vayomer Elokim ye'or. Then Hashem said, let there be light. So when did Hashem really say, let there be light? He said, let there be light at the beginning of Hashem creating the heaven and the earth. So what came first? The heaven or the earth, or light? Light. So that is the first thing that was created on day 1. Continues Rashi, and he says, Ena kavana l'kedimat shamayim va'aretz. This verse is not implying, it's not intending to teach you that heaven and earth preceded all the other creations, meaning it didn't precede light. So he says, you are forced to learn that the verse did not come to teach you the order of creation. This verse of Bereshit, bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz, is not coming to teach you the creation of the world. Ubalomar, to come and say, that in the beginning, bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz, bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz, that he first created the heavens and the earth, like the verb. Ve'elu kadmu li bara lefnei shara nivreim b'maaseh bereshit. And the heavens and the earth, they preceded before the other creations. That, Rabotai, you cannot say. Why? Sharei im ba'a katuv lehorot al kach, because if the pasuk is coming to instruct us on that, that is going on the grammar of the verb, that it was created, like I explained over here. Shitchila nivru'u shamayim va'aretz, that in the beginning, Hashem first created the heavens and the earth, and it's coming to teach us the chronological order of creation. You know what Rashi says? Hayalo lichtov barishona. It should have written first, barishona bara et hashamayim. At first Hashem created the heavens and the earth, vegomer and etc. Velo bereshit. And it should have never said the word bereshit. If you want to come and you want to tell me that we should learn the verse like this, Bereshit in the beginning, Bara Elokim et Hashem et haaretz. Hashem created the heavens and the earth, so it is coming to teach me the chronological order. If that is the case, this word Bereshit should have never been in the Torah, Chas v'Shalom, but rather the Hashem should have wrote in the Torah, Barishona, like this. At first. Because remember, whenever there's the word Bereshit, that means this word is attached to this word. But what are we doing? We're breaking it up. If you want to break up these two words, the Torah should have said Barishona and not Bereshit. So again comes Rashi right now and he's proving to us why you cannot learn this verse to mean in the verb, but rather you have to learn it in the verbal noun, like I explained over here. So he said like this. So one more time, Rabotai. That if the pasuk is coming to teach me on that, on the chronological order of creation, that heaven and earth were first created, that in the beginning the heavens and earth were created, that they were first, it should have said in the Torah, Barishona bara Elokim et Hashem et haaretz. At first, God created the heavens and the earth, but it doesn't say that. Now comes Rashi, and now he's going to explain to us the second side of the board. Remember this note, Rabotai. So how do we know that the fact that it's written Bereshit, how do I know that the word Bereshit has to connect to the next word? So Rashi says, Lefi she'en lecha tevat reshit, because you won't have the word reshit, literally the word reshit, hamofiyah b'mikra, which appears in a verse, she'enu davuk v'nismach leteva shel acharecha, which is not attached and close to the word after it. Meaning to say, whenever you see the word reshit, you should know that it's always attached to the next word, right? So, right, let's just look over here. Whenever it says bereshit, bara, automatically you have to assume that this word attaches itself to the next word. Like we had over here, bereshit mamlechet, reshit mamlechto, reshit deganecha. You have to learn it like that. But if you want to come in time that is coming to teach you the chronological order, it should have used barishona and not bereshit. So that's what Rashi is telling us over here. The reason why I want to learn this verse, bereshit, is not teaching me the chronological order. So therefore I have to use the word bara to mean biro, which means creating, because he says, lefi she'en lecha tevat reshit, because you don't have the word reshit, hamofiyah b'mikra, which appears in the verse, she'ena davuk v'nismach leteva shel acharav, that's not attached and close to the word after it. Meaning to say, whenever you see the word reshit in the Torah, again, all this is still grammar. Whenever you see the word reshit, like in our case, bereshit or Bereshit mamlechet, Reshit mamlachto, Reshit deganecha. Whenever you see the word Reshit, you should always know in the Torah, automatically it attaches itself to the next word. So whenever you're looking over here at this pasuk, Bereshit, automatically, bara is going to become boro, because I need to connect this back. Which means to say that the beginning of the thing to which it is attached is coming to introduce you something. Like it says over there in Perek Zayin in pasuk Aleph, Bereshit mamlechet Yehoyakim. Here we go. Bereshit mamlechet Yehoyakim. What does this mean? You're not going to tell me over here, Bereshit in the beginning, comma. Mamlechet Yehoyakim. Yehoyakim rhymed. What happened? Make it a full sentence. It's not a full sentence. So what does he say? Whenever you see the word Bereshit mamlechet Yehoyakim, he says, Shepirusha, the explanation of this is going to be B'techilat Malchut, the beginning of Yehoyakim's reign. Shepirusha B'techilat Malchut Yehoyakim Melech Yehuda, the beginning of Yehoyakim's reign, who was the king of Yehuda. You have to attach the word Bereshit to the word Mamlechet in order to make it a full sentence. Rabotai, I hope you guys are catching on to it like I explained before. V'chein nemar b'Nimrod, so too it says by Nimrod later on in Perek Yud, pasuk Yud, Reshit mamlachto. What does it mean, Reshit mamlachto? Shepirusha tichilat maluchuto. It comes to tell you the beginning of his reign. Don't break up the two words. Keep them together. That's the only way it makes sense grammatically. V'chein nemar, and so too it says in Devar in Perek Yud Chet pasuk Daled, Reshit deganecha. Shepirusha terumat diganecha sheken terumat shenikra reshit. The first of your crop, which is called truma, is called reshit. What are you going to learn over here? Reshit diganecha, the first of your crop. You're not going to say the first, comma, crop. What? Crop of what? What? The first of your crop. Lefichach, there he says, Avkan, so too in our case of Bereshit bara Elokim, behechrach simucha teva bereshit. In our verse also, we are forced to learn that the word Bereshit is attached to the word after it. Since it's impossible to say, because it's not grammatically correct to say Bereshit shel bara in the beginning of created. How do you make sense? In the beginning of created, it doesn't sound correct. Behechrach ata omer alecha lomar, you are forced to say shetevet bara ena mitpareshet ki nikuda bebinyan pa'al. The word bara, you're not going to learn it as a verb. Even though in the Torah it says bara, Bereshit bara Elokim et Hashem ha'aretz, nevertheless, as you know, in the Torah there's no nikudot. Why is there no nikudot? Because you could always change it to a different word, meaning you could put different vowels. That's why there's no vowels. So he says, don't learn it like this, bara, but rather we're going to see, he's going to say, learn it bero. And if you pay close attention over here, I just took away the vav and I put the cholam right over here. Bero, there's no vav, right? You see the dot over here? Bero, right? I put the dot, I didn't put the vav, because I wanted to keep it with the context of the Torah. Because there's no vav in the Torah. Anyway, you can learn it like this, with the vav, without the vav. But I just wanted to keep it more with the sequence of the Torah. So he says one more time. So therefore also over here, we are forced to say that the word Bereshit is next to the word after it, which is bara. Since it's impossible for you to say in the beginning of created, because it doesn't make sense, you're forced to say you're not going to learn the word bara like the verb. It's like the verb. Rather, you're going to learn it like the verbal noun. And how are you going to learn the word Bereshit when it says When it says Bereishit bara Elokim, you know how you're going to learn it? You're going to say Hu kimo Bereshit boro, like this. You're not going to say whenever you see in the Torah these words Bereshit bara Elokim, learn it to mean Bereshit bero Elokim. In the beginning of God creating, not in the beginning, comma, God created. No, in the beginning of God creating, because I need to make them one. But one of the things when it comes to learn Torah, make sure you have it clear, write it down, highlight it, take notes, because writing, Rabotai, one of the things you should know, people do chazarot. You could do chazarot by repeating it. But when you write it, it's one chazar. When you say it's two chazar. When you hear yourself, it's three chazar. When you say it's four chazar. So it's very important to also write it. That's why I erase it, so it shouldn't be confusing. All right, so that's what he wants to say. When you see the word in the Torah, Ubereishit bara Elokim, he says, Hu kimo, it's as if Bereshit bero, right? Like I explained over here, bero. Koloimar, meaning to say, B'tchilat bri'at Hashem et hashamayim v'et ha'aretz, in the beginning of Hashem creating the heavens and the earth, kasher ha'aretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'gomer, when the land was desolate and it was in chaos, etc. V'katuv ze nimshach achra kituvim shel acharav. This verse of Bereishit bara Elokim and so on and so forth is really after the verses which preceded, meaning this verse of Bereishit bara Elokim and Shema v'ha'aretz hayta tohu v'vohu is really dependent on the next verse following it. Uba lehorot, and comes to teach you shebriyat ha'or hayta b'tchilat ha'briya, that the creation of light was the beginning of all creation. Rabotai, look how beautiful Rashi is. You know how many people are asked, what was the first thing created? Everybody answered, heaven and earth, heaven and earth, heaven and earth. Rabotai, look how beautiful Rashi is. It's one of the riddles. If you ever do with your children on Shabbat, try to give them riddles, so this way they are able to not only enjoy the process of learning, but also you stimulate their mind to think. So when you're sitting on the Shabbos table and you ask them, I don't know, usually I do it with a little bit of money just to, get things going. But even with that money, Baruch Hashem, my kids love to learn. But just to make it a little more exciting, you throw in $10, $15, $20 sometimes. What is the first thing that was created in the world? Finish. And you see this one screaming this one screaming that, this one screaming this. No. Again, if it's a simple answer, you go with low, say $1, $5. But if it's a hard answer, and you raise up the bar, because now you get them to think. In any event, Rabotai, comes Rashi and he says, Ubol lehorot shibriat haor hayta b'tchilat habriya. This comes to teach us that the beginning of came to teach us that the creation of the light was the beginning of the creation. Like we explained above. So we see clearly from over here, when it says Bereishit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et ha'aretz, v'ha'aretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei tahom, v'ruach Elokim merechevet al pnei hamayim, v'yomer Elokim ye'or v'ye'or. It's all really one long verse, because these other pasukim really dependent on the last pasuk. Meaning to say that in the beginning, you know what happened? Hashem first created light.